Yo, what's up fanbase, it's your boy Blaze Hollow coming at you with another What If. This time I'll bring you What If Deku had all form part 13. I am very sorry for taking so long to record, it's just that the family business have been taking up a lot of my free time and I don't really get to do much things else, so I'm going to say let's get into it and start that intro.
See me through the fuck, bitch. Crazy, saying that she hate me. Obliterate the pussy feral animal with rabies. Yo, bitch, fucking dirty. She got scabies. Wife the Tatiana that trapped you with some babies. Everyone thinking that they gon' save me. Depressive motherfucker, I don't wanna steal you.
More curious that he couldn't hear the sound of any of the other applicants battling the machines. Before anything could be said between the group, they actually looked back to see that the giant gates were actually slamming shut as they started to hear rumbling throughout the entire city. Izuku was looking all over the place because something within his DNA was telling him that he was about to experience true hell. Everybody be on guard, whatever is in here is about to be heading our way. Shoto actually just lit his hands ablaze as he covered a piece of the road and turned it into a levitating platform for him to ride on. I'm going to survey the area and check things out, so I'll come back to you guys as soon as possible. Shinso used his capture scarf to actually swing from a telephone pole as he then got on top of the roof buildings. I'm going to check out the other side of the testing site, so make sure to stay out of trouble until I get back. As the group was trying to split up, Titan actually was looking towards the sky as he noticed some weird projectiles coming their way. As he got a closer look by squinting his eyes, he actually noticed that they were missiles, but before anything could be done, the missiles touched down right in front of them as it made a giant explosion, making Shoto and Shinso think that their best friends were actually just killed in a horrifying death. But they quickly noticed that they had work for themselves as they actually noticed that a bunch of robots were coming out of nowhere. And what was the most horrific was when they looked up at the sky, they noticed a bunch of gigantic robots the size of skyscrapers coming their way. Shoto had mixed feelings about what to do, either to stop all the robots coming their way or try to find a way to clear the debris on top of his friends. As he noticed Shinso, he realized that there was only one thing he had to do as he started to levitate towards the robots, trying to make a path for Shinso to get to his friends. Shinso, go and check on the others. I'll make sure to hold out the robots as long as I can until you can get them all onto their feet. Shinso could only watch as he saw one of his closest friends, Noah, brother-in-arms, actually rushing into a battle that could risk his very life. As he rushed down to the street below, trying to find where the missiles touched down to find his friends' bodies if he could. Guys, if you can hear me, please make some noise underneath the dirt so I can start digging you out. Izuku, Mina, Yumi, Titan, please say something. The sound of rustling gravel could be heard underneath Shinso's feet as he actually was given some hope. But also he was worried as a gigantic bone popped out of the ground as a skull was starting to form, with a giant skeletal hand as he started to take a few steps back thinking that he unleashed a gigantic monster, only for it to fall over dead, revealing Titan and the others being completely unharmed. I seriously have to thank whoever created me because thanks to them my genetics automatically transform me whenever I'm about to get killed by extreme damage. Izuku was sweating bullets, realizing that if Titan wasn't here the three of them would be dead right now. So that explains it. This is an actual battle for our lives. Yumi was actually scared as she could remember what happened before the blast as she saw Titan get in front of all three of them as she hugged him, telling that it's going to be alright as he partly transformed while her life was flashing before her eyes. These people are completely insane. They can't be allowed to get away with this. Shinso was smiling as he knew that his team was actually alive. Well, unless you have a video camera on you, it's going to be our word against theirs. Either way, we had to get moving. As he pointed at the 0-point robots that were ganging up on Shoto. He's not going to last very much longer, especially with all the ground troops trying to shoot him out of the sky. Izuku took a step forward, actually very pissed, thinking that the people who run the school were willing to go so far to try to kill them. Alright, here's the plan. Shinso and Yumi, you both are going to go scout around the area to try to find other examinees to see what's going on with them. If you don't see any for the next 2 minutes, then head back to our group and join the fight. Shinso wasn't very happy with the idea of being put on the scouting mission, knowing that his friends are going to be fighting for their lives right here in the center of town. Fine, just don't get yourselves killed because if you do, I'll find a way to bring you back and kill you myself. Yumi had to slap her face a little bit, trying to compose herself, realizing that this is what real hero work is like. Izuku watched the both of them leave as he actually noticed that the robots were changing their battle tactics. As some of the smaller robots actually started heading out after the scouts, only leaving the giant robots to deal with the elemental attacks from Shoto. Izuku soon looked over at Titan with a very serious look about the situation. situation. I need you to use your most versatile transformation and start changing up the landscape so we can use it to our advantage. Also, don't worry about the property damage because I think at this point we don't need to worry about that anymore, but make sure to look out for other examinees. If you see them, keep them safe. I nodded as he just started running towards a swarm of robots. As soon as he got a good distance away, he started to bite down on his hand and transform, revealing himself to have a white-like armor and to be a lot more thin than what he usually looks like, but the biggest difference was the crystallized hammer that he was using, about to crush down on the nearest zero pointer. Get away from my brother, you mechanized thing of bolts. As he brings down his hammer to crush the machine into bits, a bunch of crystallized spikes start shooting out of the ground into a bunch of directions. Shoto smiles as he was breathing heavy, using the stone that he was levitating on to go over to Titan's head. I see you went with the Warhammer transformation. Did Izuku give you permission to use it? Titan nodded slowly as he looked down at his feet, realizing the smaller bots were trying to shoot at his tendons, causing him to want to stomp down on the ground to crush them completely. Yeah, the boss said that we need to go all out. The machines are programmed to actually kill us, so don't hold back anything. Shoto just had a big grin on his face as the veins on his arm started to pop out a little bit, revealing that one of the zero pointers were starting to implode upon itself. As he was condensing it into a metal ball, he made it levitate above his head as he was breathing heavier than before. It seriously hurts my arm to do this, but I really am appreciative that I learned how to metal bend because it's amazing. Izuku and Mina both shook their heads, realizing that they let the most impulsive people off of their leash. As they looked straight forward, they noticed a bunch of three-pointers and second-pointers charging right towards them. Izuku took a bow, allowing Mina to have the first strike at the robot. Mina was super excited as she started to turn her arms into sludge-like tendrils as she started whipping them around trying to melt all the robots. When she finally stopped, she noticed that all the robots had turned into melted slag on the floor. You would think that they would make these things out of stronger material. Either that or my acid is just that good. Izuku was walking slowly towards the epicenter of town until he noticed that he was completely surrounded by robots. As he was a little bit annoyed, realizing that he's going to be taking a lot of points away from his friends. I was hoping not to have to fight yet. It's still too early in the exam. All of the robots were getting ready to smash down on Izuku, only for them to get sliced completely in half by a crimson tail. Just for a little extra performance, Izuku starts shooting little fireballs into the faces of the leftover robot, causing all of them to explode. As we cut over to Shinso and Humi, who were still patrolling the city trying to find other examinees. Shinso decided to stop on one of the tallest buildings as he could start to hear the sound of metal clanging against metal as he looked behind him to see some of the robots up on top of the building. As they shoot missiles at him, on reflex he brings up his arms with the muscle fibers trying to increase his defense, causing him to be covered in a massive dust cloud that everybody could see in the distance. Shinso came out of the smoke with a little bit of burn marks all over his muscle fibers, but he was smiling, knowing that he could fight like he meant it as he started to charge towards the robots, starting to smash them together. I have to remember to thank Izuku for this quirk and for allowing me to fight all these things by myself because I have a few issues I need to punch out. Yumi couldn't find anybody except for her own group within the testing site. As she started to fly back, she noticed that Shinso could actually use some help. As she starts to fly over, when she finally gets within range, she uses her feathers to start knocking robots off the building to give some breathing room as she lands right next to Shinso. Alright, I have some good news and some bad news. Which one do you really want to hear first? Shinso punched through one of the two pointers as he reeled his arm back. It was covered in wires as he looked over at Humi. I guess you can give me the bad news so we can hurry up here and get back to the others. Humi turned some of her feathers into blades as she started to slice robots off the edge of the building. Bad news is that our fears will realize that nobody else is here within the testing site and that the robots are swarming on all of us, trying to take us out one by one. Shinso had a very annoyed look on his face as he started to slam his hand together, making a massive shockwave, sending the rest of the robots off the edge of the building. I figured as much, so what's the good news? Hopefully you saw something out there that was actually going to make me feel better about our situation. Yumi felt like they were done with this area as she grabbed onto Shinso and started flying back towards the others. The good news is we don't have to worry about casualties if buildings start falling all over the place. Shinso started to laugh, thinking about how much destruction is actually going to be happening within this testing site. No offense, but I think we should tell the others except for the boss, because if we let him off his leash, he's going to go against the plan to make all of our scores look so much lower. Yumi was thinking about that, but she didn't get much time to think about it as she had to dodge out of the way of a gigantic crystallized hammer, which really made her annoyed. As she flies over to Titan's head, putting Shinso right on his shoulder, she flew up right in front of him, very mad. I have half a mind to tear you out of that transformation and beat the shit out of you. Titan was confused on why he was being yelled at. Why are you so mad? I'm only doing what the boss told me to do. Yumi was annoyed, but when she turned around, she noticed that a couple of robots had jumped up onto the hammer. As they go to jump at her, she sliced them apart with her feather blades. I'm mad because you keep on swinging the hammer around, not paying attention. You almost hit Shinso and Gemini out of midair. Shoto flies over with a bunch of metal spears made out of scrap metal of the robots levitating around him as his arms looked like they were ready to break on him. And you stop whining for once. We're literally in a battle for our lives. If you screw up, we're probably going to die, so stay on your toes and watch out for your allies. During that entire conversation, a leftover 0 pointer picks up some of its allies as it tosses it at Shoto, who tries to use the metal around him to block them, but they were too many as they send him slamming to the street below. As he was constantly being swarmed by robots, everybody was panicking, thinking that he was about to die. But then everybody turned back, hearing suction from a vortex as Izuku's arm started to swell up like crazy, which made everybody freak out as they rushed to get out of the pathway. Izuku was focusing hard because he was going to go for a 100% air cannon blast. I seriously am going to have a major talk with the exam committee after this. As he unleashed the air cannon, everything in front of him, the buildings, the robots, even the pavement started to fly away, making everything in front of him look like it was ground zero. As he rushes over to where Shoto ended up, he noticed that his brother was very much unconscious. Don't you dare die on me, Shoto. We still have so much more that we need to prove to this world. As a mysterious figure pops out of Izuku's back, revealing herself to be a young girl with long brown hair, wearing a clear visor over her eyes, with a skin-tight suit that was black and white, especially though that it had some pink on her side. Leave this to me. It's best that I use my quirk directly. You don't want to end up healing him wrong. Izuku nodded as he was very concerned for his brother. I trust you, medic. You haven't steered me wrong yet. He takes a few steps forward as he noticed that a few more robots start to show up onto the scene. Alright, I'm done holding back. It's time that we got our redemption. Reveal yourself, army of the redeemed. As soon as that statement was said, 3 figures jump out of Izuku's back, revealing the first one to be All For One. The second figure reveals himself to be a fully grown man wearing a top hat with a red band around it. He also had black hair with a white stage mask covering half of his face, along with wearing a fancy suit as he had a black cloak covering most of his body as he had a wooden cane that he was holding on to. It's about time you brought me out, Izuku. It's time for the performance of a lifetime. I will let my flames guide the way to victory. Izuku smiled as he looked at his new allies, waiting for the final 2 to form themselves. It's good to see what you finally look like at your peak, Foxfire. I was hoping that you live up to your own hype. Foxfire did a little bow as he took off his hat, allowing it to roll off of his arm back onto his head. Oh, trust me, there are many things that I could teach you. Sure, my ending was foolish, but I did have many tricks up my sleeve, and I was a great thief, knowing that my skills will be useful to you on this battlefield. The third mysterious figure was starting to form himself as it reveals to be a young man with blonde hair, with tan skin, wearing a red shirt and an orange tank top overneath with a baggy pair of jeans, along with black sneakers and 3 black and red tendrils that were coming out of his back, swaying back and forth. It's good to see you, my king. This is what I looked like before I went deep into my madness. Izuku just sighed as he was shaking his head, not wanting to be called king anymore. Listen, I don't know if it's a form of respect from where you come from, but I do not like being called king. Just call me by my name, Crimson King. The final mysterious figure started to reveal herself to be a young woman with silver brown hair, wearing a gas mask that was over the lower part of her face, wearing a pair of blue gloves that go all the way up to her shoulders, with a blue and white jumpsuit all over her body that were skin tight, along with a pair of boots that were sliced down the middle between blue and white. It really does bring sorrow to my heart knowing that you boys are excited to bring more destruction to this area. All For One remembered this person and her really bad habit as he coughed to get everybody's attention off of what she was about to say. Long time no see, Typhoon. The last time that I saw you were trying to kill me by drowning me in a vortex made out of your own body. Typhoon then looked over at All For One, remembering how she lost her quirk to him along with her life. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, you stole my quirk and then one of your creatures killed me. Izuku realized that if he let All For One and Typhoon continue to talk to each other, they might turn on one another, so he decided to get in between the both of them and get their conversation to stop. Okay, before we get into who killed who, I need you to focus on the task at hand. We have a bunch of robots getting ready to swarm us while my brother is still unconscious. From what I'm looking at, Titan doesn't seem like he's going to last much longer in his transformation, so I'm going to need you all to start spreading out and taking out machines as quickly as possible. All of them just nod as they head out to go fight against other machines as we cut over to the monitoring room, where we see Nezu, Eraserhead, Endeavor, All Might, Snipe, Midnight, Overhaul, and Night Eye. As they were analyzing over each and every testing site, Overhaul was actually extremely pissed because of how the judges were treating Group C. Overhaul proceeds to give All Might an intense glare for what was going on. So, would you like to explain to me, Mr. Symbol of Peace, how your former son and all of his friends ended up in the same group with robots that were actually trying to kill them, along with getting all of the examinees out? All Might was baffled by the statement, wondering where Overhaul gets the audacity to actually question him about his morals. Why is it that you always always assume when something goes wrong with him and his friends, it's always my fault. Eraserhead was sitting back in his chair as he was watching the monitors very closely, as he was very impressed by Izuku's new tricks and all the new forms of his friends. It doesn't truly matter who caused this entire test site to go berserk, because that entire group alone is handling it like real heroes. All Might was trying to keep a straight face, but in actuality he was very pissed off seeing all these villains from the past taking out machines in this test room. If you truly want my opinion, that boy should be disqualified for having outside help. Snipe was actually paying attention to Group C a lot because he saw potential in each and every one of them, but he had a few questions for how their quirks work. I don't think the boy should be disqualified. There are plenty of heroes out there that have quirks that allow them to multiply. Just because he's able to add extra effects to it doesn't mean that his quirk is any different from somebody else. Midnight was licking her lips as she was watching the young men and women trying their best to achieve their dream. The biggest concern for Group C is where are the other applicants that were supposed to be a part of that testing site. Night was happy he was standing in the back of the room because he was extremely angry with himself for not being able to see Izuku's future. I still think they should be deducted points for destroying major parts of the city. Could you imagine if we were doing this in an actual populated area? Nezu was pondering the questions all around the room as he was watching the monitors very closely, as he was starting to try to get everybody's attention for what he was about to say. I completely disagree with docking them any points because in certain situations it is necessary to have collateral damage around the area. As we could see, the children are actually fighting for their lives, so until we can figure out how to get the machines to stop acting this way, we have to hope that they last outside of the time limit. And in my opinion, if they are actually able to survive, I will give them automatic exception into UA. All Might grabbed onto his armrest, nearly crushing it as he starts to look over towards Endeavor. So how much did you donate to the school to pull off this little stunt? I know you like to get your own way, but to risk your own children just to prove a point, how low have you sunk in Endeavor? Endeavor just leaned back in his chair as he pulled up a water bottle and drank half of it, as he then proceeded to look over at All Might with a stern look. I didn't cause this disaster either, but I have no doubt that my son and their friends will be able to handle the situation. They don't need words, you just need to watch their actions. All Might stood up like he was getting ready to leave for something. Well, I think we should head down to that testing site and get those kids out of there before they end up getting themselves killed. Everybody was staying in their seat, not worried for 1 second, because they were watching the kids' actions, realizing that they actually could handle the situation, as Nezu spoke up first. If Endeavor is willing to speak up on their behalf, I say that we let them finish their test so they can truly prove themselves. Midnight actually grabbed onto All Might's arm, trying to get him back into his seat. Truly are underestimating them. Their leader actually has the entire situation under control because he was using scouts to check out for other examinees while also putting out a battle strategy. Racerhead spoke up next, ready to give his own opinion on the situation. Plus, with them sending in their heavy hitters first to take out the gigantic robots in the beginning actually really did help them get the city back under control. Knight was agreeing with everything that he heard so far, but he wanted to give his own notes on what he was watching. Also can't deny that they have excellent teamwork. They were able to get around each other and not be in each other's way. I feel like if this wasn't an exam about just getting a bunch of points, they actually would do a lot more combo attacks with one another. All Might finally sat back down in his chair, really angry, just wanting to get this entire situation over with. Fine with me, but if they end up getting themselves killed, it's all of your fault because I tried to stop this. Overhaul was just chuckling in his chair, thinking about the idea of them actually being killed by these simple robots. Oh, All Might, if you actually knew how these kids work, they're just too stubborn to die. They'll keep on fighting until they actually seize victory. Cut back to Test Site C as we actually see Mina teaming up with Typhoon to use their rain and acid to melt down the robot, as Shinso and the Crimson King were actually running on the side of the buildings trying to take out the missile bites so they could no longer fire upon us at a distance, while Titan was being assisted by Foxfire, who was shooting fireballs at the robots trying to take out Titan's ankles. Final group was Izuku and All For One, who were playing bodyguard to the unconscious Shoto, and Medic, who was trying to fix him. Izuku stretched out his fingers as he jammed it into one of the robots as he then threw it into a building nearby. How much longer until you can get him back on his feet? We need Shoto to be playing defense with us right now. Medic was kind of annoyed that she was being rushed to do her job. Listen, he has pieces of strap metal stuck within his body, plus he got a concussion from slamming into the ground. Well, unless you want him to come out worse, don't rush me and let me do my job properly. Izuku was immediately intimidated as he put his hands up, not wanting to piss off Medic any further. I am very sorry, please take your time, we'll try to do our best to keep the robots off of you. Medic had a green area of effect that was surrounding her along with Shoto, trying to take out all the pieces of strap metal while she was trying to fix his head. Thank you, I appreciate it. It should take just a few more minutes and I'll be able to get him back onto his feet, but he will not be 100%. For one, shot off the wing cannon at 20%, destroying at least 15 robots within the blast radius. You know, Izuku, you'd probably be a lot more effective if you called back your army and had all of the quirks back inside of you, because the way you are now, you only have your invisibility and your base quirk. If you want, I can go back inside so you have full access to the wind cannon. Deku thought about it for a second, but then he looked back at his brother, who was in terrible shape, which actually stirred up a lot of his emotions. Rather you be out here. I'm too emotional right now, and if I actually had all my quirks, there's a chance I could transform into my monstrous self. Both of them were having this serious conversation when they actually saw an overlay of shadow. They look up to see half of a skyscraper falling out of the air as it hit Titan right in the back, slamming him right into the ground as they hear a painful screech. As the robots start to shoot down the top of the body, Firefox starts shooting more fireballs, but is then quickly surrounded by more robots on top. Don't worry, my friend, I will fight with you until our dying breath, but just like every great performance, we will find a way to get out of this trap and have the final laugh. Everybody started heading towards Titan's unconscious body, trying to get to the head as a ton of steam started to come out of it. As soon as they got up to the neck, a bunch of missiles started to fall out of the sky as everybody ducked for cover. Except for Izuku, who was screaming at the top of his lungs as the explosion was going off, leaving a bloody smoke cloud. Please don't die on me, Titan. We still have so much more we need to get done in this world. But that's where I'm going to leave it off this time, guys. Make sure to leave a comment down below, like the video, and always check out our Discord. But with all that said, I'm out this time, guys. Bye!